We tend to want to eliminate tension. That tension is important. That's how we grow. Belief is transferable. The belief I had in them was necessary for them to believe in themselves, because people are limitless. Your culture is shaped by the lowest level of acceptable behavior. In other words, what we tolerate becomes the new standard inside of our business, and we end up with more of it. If we don't listen to our customers, we're bound to be disrupted. 2027, there's going to be a labor shortage. The success of your company comes down to how well your teams perform when you're watching and when nobody's looking. Not every decision is going to be the best, and that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. Just don't be wrong for long.
We got a great guest on today. Brian Gottlieb is joining us, inspirational business leader who has turned a modest startup of a folding table and $3,000 into an industry-leading powerhouse with a lifetime revenue nearing $1 billion. He is now an author, and we're excited to talk about the concepts of the book, Beyond the Hammer, and so much more about what he's bringing to the leadership community, back to the trades. We are looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I don't think I've ever heard Nate say welcome to the show, Brian, before, so that was nice. Finally, after 5 years, Nate's welcoming me to the show. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. We had Sean McGraw connected us in a way that was just like, bro, have you read this book? And I'm like, I have not read this book. He said, and I was struggling with something in the business. Sean's a good friend of mine. I was struggling with something in the business. He's like, this would be perfect for you, you know? And I'm like, all right. And then he said, and I know him, so if you like it, we can get him on the show. And I was like, reading praise for the book, and I'm like, well, I already want to get him on the show. We'll handle the book part, after. Yeah. And then we connected, and this is the time it worked, which was perfect because it's been probably a month maybe 2 months since I finished the book. But it was really cool reading the book, as I told you on the phone one day, Brian, because it's like part of what the protagonist has going on is he's got his 20-year-old daughter living at home, not doing much, and her name's Amelia. Yeah. And my wife's name's Amelia, but our daughter, who was 20 when I started reading this book, was not too far off from that. I mean, yeah. She's at PetSmart and in grooming school, so things are progressing, but yeah, not necessarily as fast as they could be. And she's very sarcastic, like young Amelia in the book. And I'm like, this sounds just like Juliana. So
oh boy,
that was fun. Yeah,
that was the goal. The goal is I wanted to write something for our industry that people could really relate to, right? Because we've all been there, right? We've got a kid working in the business, or we're a second generation company, or we've got people that work for us that aren't taking ownership of their work. I mean, these are the real challenges. And by the way, I'm glad I got on your show before you actually had a chance to implement everything, because if it didn't work, you wouldn't have me on.
Oh, that's actually what I wanted to talk about, bro.
And by the way, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, no, the concepts are tried and true. There's nothing in that book that could not work. The cool thing, I mean, I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you brought any brand new concepts to that book. The cool part about the book is it's in story form, which makes even a guy like me able to read it, really enjoy it, and then sit there and pluck him out of the story and pluck Brian Burton into the story.
Yeah, that's right.
And see myself in this guy so many different times, and even wins that I had recently accomplished or things that I'd worked through. I saw him in that book as me last year or the year before, and I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. I'm on the right track. But yeah, just all in all, it was a phenomenal book, super fun to listen to. And
yeah, I appreciate it. Well, it's like when we raise kids, right? We could tell our kids the same thing 20 times. Then some stranger tells our kids something, and they're like, oh my gosh, you can't believe what I just learned. So I kind of just wanted to speak in a way that people could actually relate to, so they could take action on it. And, look, building a business is messy. We all know that. Building teams is messy. It's a challenge. You're dealing with people and competing priorities, and all of that stuff gets messy. And I think you need a North Star somewhere to figure out, okay, what do I do with this? How can I as a leader be the best leader for the team? And I also think as a business grows, even our role as leaders change, right? You probably have seen that with yourselves as, that as your team is growing and growing and growing, we have to redefine who we are as leaders. Like now, what should we be for our team? And that changes based on our team and the needs of the business.
It's interesting, Brian, we had on the show a couple weeks ago, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, who's also an author. And one of the big concepts out of his books has been the power of story, right? Because of what Burton was just saying there about how you read a story and then you conceptualize it for somebody else, and then it like kind of hits you between the eyes as like, oh, wow, that actually does reflect upon me. It is talking about me or this person that I know. And so kind of translating that back to you, Brian, what's your story, man? Like what has been your story and what has gotten you to this point so far?
Yeah, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Let's just start there, okay? And like a lot of us, if there was no plan to get to where I am today, to be clear, okay? It wasn't like some grandmaster plan. In fact, I remember many years ago after I started my business, my goal was to be like, gee, if we could just be a $10 million company, we would be like a gorilla in our market. We'd be the 800-pound gorilla. But then, once you hit 10 million, you realize you're just growing and growing and growing. The business, I share it all the time that I didn't build a big business. I built great teams and they built a great business, and that's kind of, so, my story is just, it's really been about how can I always focus on developing the people around me and give them an opportunity so that they can not just realize their potential, but actually reach it. And I think, early on, one of the defining moments for me is, look, when I first started my business, we used to sell stuff that we didn't make any money at. Okay, we had like one line, just sell stuff. That was like our mission statement, just sell stuff. And in fact,
this sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I never met a deposit I didn't like. Okay, but the truth is, the business was very chaotic, and I had to get to the point to realize that while chaos might produce revenue, it's discipline that produces profit. And what are the right disciplines for myself and for the team that I need to plug into the business so that we can actually be around to cover payroll and survive and take care of our customers long term. And that was a journey.
And because most of our listeners may not be as familiar with you or haven't read your book yet, the journey that you chose was specifically in the home improvement space. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that and the companies that grew with you.
Yeah. So, well, look, I started selling at the kitchen table when I was in high school. I would sell pots and pans at the kitchen table, and I loved the idea of knocking on some stranger's door and walking out with a check in my hand. It was really invigorating. It was cool. So, but eventually it got into the construction side and then home improvements. And I love the home improvement industry. I love all home services because what's cool about it, when you think about it, and you have technicians watching this, you have leaders watching this, and everybody can relate to it. It doesn't matter what kind of car you drive. It doesn't matter where you went to school. It doesn't matter what kind of home you live in. You could truly have the career of your dreams if you show up with the right attitude, the right energy, the right willingness to learn. And I just absolutely love that about the home improvement business specifically. So we started a company in the very early days. We were selling sunrooms, and I realized that I didn't know how to make any money selling a sunroom. So we started selling one-day baths, and that business just took off on us like crazy. And then I opened up another company out in Arizona, and then I opened up a couple of Renewal by Andersen window companies. So the three businesses together had about 600 employees. It was a lot of moving pieces, but a lot of fun too.
Yeah, and now a lifetime revenue of $1 billion. Congratulations on that, and to your team as well, which is exceptional. And one of the things you mentioned there, Brian, was that one of the things that you enjoy or that you've seen work in practice is if you develop your team, they will develop the business. But is not the predicate to that the fact that you have to first be developed yourself? So how did you become developed yourself? Was this just a God-given gift to you, or did you have leaders that invested into you? How did you get to a place where you felt that you actually had something to offer back?
I'll share a story with you that I don't share too often. Years ago, before I started my business, I used to do sales training across the country as a consultant and work with companies all over the place. And this was like before I could actually survey somebody online, I would give everybody in the class a paper survey to fill out. Like, what did you think of the training? What's one word that describes Brian? All these questions. And I still have it. It's in the shelf behind me. And it's a binder. The binder is probably about 4 inches thick of these one-page surveys. And I remember one day I was sitting in a hotel room getting ready to do another training class, and I'm just reviewing all these surveys. And what I hope to see is, wow, Brian really taught me how to be a closer. But the words that kept coming up is that was really inspirational. Brian was very inspirational. And I kept seeing that word inspirational over and over and over again. And I thought to myself, that's so interesting, because I never thought of myself as being an inspirational person. And what if I just do more of that? What if I go all in on that concept? What if everything I do starts with being inspirational? Where will that really take me? And that was really a pivot point in my life, that, I wanted to build a business that was more than just selling home improvements. I wanted a business where people were inspired to accomplish great things, where we're woven into the fabric of the communities that we serve, where we make a positive impact, not just in the lives of our customers, but in the lives of the people on our team. And if we can do all these things really well, we're going to give people a story worth telling, and we're going to build a business far beyond my wildest imagination. And that was just kind of a fun journey. So I think what developed me is, fortunately I had, friends of mine that were all kind of on the same journey, but also the responsibility, leadership a lot it's really the responsibility, but also the privilege to grow and develop others. I use those two words next to each other, responsibility and privilege, because we have a responsibility to develop our team, but we also understand that with that responsibility comes accountability. And when I think about accountability, that's like, oh my gosh, it's another thing I got to do. And we know that if you run a business or you're running a team, that the business doesn't care if you're on vacation with your family in Disneyland. When it needs you, it needs you. It doesn't care if you want to sleep at 2:00 in the morning, it'll wake you up. These are the things that drive you crazy with that responsibility. But it's also a privilege. And with privilege comes gratitude. And so, yes, I have a responsibility to the business and to the team, but I'm so grateful to have that responsibility. And I think we as leaders, we need both of those in order to have balance in our lives. Otherwise, we can get out of whack pretty quickly.
Yeah, that is a concept that I'm sure you go farther into detail in the book, which you are an author of, which is very exciting, Brian, and congratulations on that. And that's really where we want to spend the meat of the show, is diving into the concepts there within. And so I want to start off because, there's dozens, maybe hundreds of leadership books at this point. There's well-versed people in the industry. There's people who spend their entire lives dedicated to leadership development and growth and trajectory. And we've had many of those professionals on. And so if I could be very blunt and very bold, Brian, why another leadership book?
Yeah, well, it's more than just a leadership book, just to start there. When I started writing it, it was a 2-year journey. I started writing it, and I'm reading it. It's like, this is just another leadership book, and I don't want it to be like that. I wanted it to be like, like I'm sitting across the table with you, we're drinking a beer, we're having a cup of coffee, and we're having a conversation about what it means to grow a business, and what's the truth on where we all get stuck, and what do we do about it? It's like, I think so I wanted it to be much more approachable and not speak over you. I wanted it to be something people could really relate to, but then also make it actionable, so you didn't have to wonder, well, what do I do now? It's a good concept, but how does that apply to my business? And I felt that specifically for the blue collar industry didn't exist, and I felt like I could really fill that void. And look, the success has been overwhelming, so it's been a really, really fun ride.
That's exciting to hear, because I think it is unique that a book is geared towards the blue collar industry, which is really exciting, obviously right on point with our listener base. And obviously you have the background in that as well. And so just to kind of introduce things from your perspective, Brian, as you consider the blue collar industry, the trades, the home improvement, all the adjacent landscape that is there, when you think of leadership or the lack thereof, what is the first thing that comes to mind in the trades specifically?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things, but the first thing is that everybody in the business has some sort of a leadership role. We were chatting about this before we came on air here, that what makes our industries very unique, whether you're in the window washing business or the HVAC business, or you're in the one-day bath business, or you're a plumbing company, 99.9% of everybody in the organization is interacting with the customer in one form or another. That doesn't happen in manufacturing. In manufacturing, 80% of the people are in a warehouse or in a factory building stuff. They don't talk to the customer. In our industry, everybody's interacting with the customer, which means everybody is a representation of your brand, and everybody makes a can move the needle on brand and opportunities inside of the organization. Getting people aligned around how they should think about what they do and the difference that they make, that's a significant thing. And so from a premise, that's really where it starts.
And you go on to talk about it within the concept of 5 pillars, which we're excited to learn about. Why don't you hit them at a high level, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah. Before I hit those pillars, the reason the pillars exist, and maybe I didn't get into it enough in the book, but I'll share it with you now. Look, I have this little rubber band that's in my hand right here. And when you think about business in general, or life, we in life, we try to run from anything. We try to run from tension. We're like taught our whole lives to avoid tension, and we want calm. But in business, when you think about the role of the leader or the role of the manager, is to, on one side, to truly define reality. What is the truth about where we are today as an organization? The good, the bad, the ugly, the unvarnished truth. That's today. And then you stretch out that rubber band in the distance. And that's where do we need to get to in the future? This bold distance we need to get to. The stretch between those 2 points is tension. We tend to want to eliminate tension. We do that by either not truly defining where we are today or by changing how important it is to get somewhere else. In business, we want people to honor that tension and not be afraid of it, to realize that we're stretching somewhere big and bold. And you know what? And that's okay. That tension is important. That's how we grow. But again, but how do you do that without becoming this very disruptive leader? So that's kind of what the 5 pillars are really all about.
I think this is an interesting object lesson there. Brian's just kind of conceptualizing it. If you're not watching the visual podcast, Brian had a rubber band stretched out, and on one finger he was representing current today, and the other finger he was representing tomorrow. And he was actually moving his fingers together as he was explaining the dynamic of how leaders and other people tend to remove that tension sometimes. And, when I've thought about leaders, or when other people have taught about leaders, I've heard a lot about, things like visionaries and integrators from the EOS concepts. You hear about people who are good at, charging through walls, and then people who are good at strategy. You have the pick up the flag and, follow me. And then you have the, just the autonomous, like go in a corner and they'll just do their thing. So the leaders come in all different shapes and sizes, for sure. We know that. Have you found one strategy or one particular characteristic of leaders to be more effective or less effective in all of your years?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's all about authenticity. Let's just start there. That I think who you are is who you are, and let's just go all in on who we are. And what I will share with you is that, in fact, I'm working on my next book that's going to be out this fall, and it's a sales book. And I get into that pretty deep in the sales book. But look, what does the best technician have in common? The best technicians, what do they have in common? The best leaders have in common. The best managers have in common. The best musicians have in common. The best athletes have in common. I think it's one word. I think and you can say, well, maybe it's discipline, maybe it's focus, maybe it's energy, maybe it's attitude. To me, it's love. They love what they do. The athlete loves what they do. They might not win every game, but when they lose, they're going to go back, they're going to practice more because they're going to get better for the next game because they love the sport that they're in. The leaders, they love the business. They love the numbers. They love the challenges. They love the customer. They love all the technician. They love the grind of it all. They love making a customer's home different from when they showed up to when they leave. I think how do we get people not just to do a job, but how do we get to love the industry itself? And I think when we do that, we build a heck of a team.
Can I push that out a little bit, Brian? Because sure. I'm curious with that. Love, not the answer I was expecting. I was thinking discipline or something along those lines. I think I've come across people who love winning more than they love the sport. They love the paycheck more than they love the people. They love the accolades more than they love the actual work. Have you found that to be true, or do you think that's a false premise?
Well, look, I think who am I to say what motivates another individual? Right. There are some salespeople that love the close because they love the paycheck, but they love the paycheck for another reason. It's not like they're just going to save paychecks. They're probably trying to buy a big house or try to do something else or try to, have generational wealth for their family. That's really what they love. And the paycheck is the means to get there. And I think if we can connect people to their bigger why, you mentioned Sean McGraw, Brian, when we first jumped on this thing. I saw Sean's place, and he had a vision board in his call center where he had these people that are on the phone listing on a vision board what their personal goals are, their professional goals are, and their financial goals are. And they relate that vision board to every single phone call they make. And I think as leaders, if we can connect people to their true why of what they do, the thing that really, really ignites them, I think we're going to have a better team. And then it's not just so much about because look, Nate, we all know that at some point there's going to be somebody across the street that's going to pay $1 more an hour than you're paying. And if that's all they're chasing, you're going to have a whole lot of turnover. It's going to be very problematic.
It's no different than you're writing a sales book. I'm a sales trainer, among other things. And it's no different than that exact principle you just talked about is no different than if we go out as salespeople in home services, which is what we train on the show. And the only difference we show the client between us and every other company is the price. They're going to pick the guy who's $2 less than we are.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So the same in sales, the same in leadership. We've got to have a list of value building reasons to choose us, and money is one of them. And in some cases, it might be considered the most important one. But if there are so many other ones on the other side of the scale, it can be outweighed in almost every case with leadership and with selling.
It's so interesting because one of the big principles of my new book is if you think about whether you're selling an HVAC system or a shower system, or you're selling fax machines. I don't care what you're selling. Well, you name it. I don't know if anybody sells fax machines anymore. But anyway, but what we're selling is we're selling a different future for people. We're actually selling change from whatever their current condition is now to a different future that's probably going to be better and hopefully better. And we think about the idea of selling change, then we have to realize we're taking people through change. And the best skills to take people through change aren't sales skills, they're leadership skills, which is why sales is leadership. And it's the fundamental principle of this whole new book, that selling is leadership. And the more we can think about ourselves as leaders and taking people down a journey that they weren't normally comfortable going or didn't prepare to go. And yes, price matters and all those other kind of things matter, but helping them change matters the most. So I think it's true in everything we do.
Well, we'll look forward to that book, Brian, and we'll bring you back on when it's released, and we're excited to have that conversation.
Love it.
But let's dig into those 5 pillars right now. I believe the first one starts off with belief is transferable. So walk us through that concept.
Yeah. So I'm assuming when the both of you got into one of your new roles in your organization, you probably were a little concerned that you might have been over your skis. Right? At some point, right? Yeah, it's true for everybody. Yeah,
Never, not at all.
As a business owner, there was so many times I had no idea what I was doing, okay? And when I'm bringing people on board, but me, I can't quit because it's my business, okay? I have to fight through it. But I'm bringing people into my team. I'm hiring people that have never done stuff before. And if they feel like they're not made for this or incapable of doing it, they're going to walk out the door. The first thing they need to know is that they are capable of doing it. And that comes from somebody believing in them. And belief is transferable. The more I believe in another individual and I express that and communicate the why I believe in them, well, the more they're going to believe in themselves. Then I use the example in my book of my kids when they were on training wheels. And I didn't just take the training wheels off and let them ride on 2 wheels by themselves. They'd fall. They'd be afraid to do that. I would hold on to the seat and I'd run behind them and I'd let them know, hey, you got this. You can do this. I know that you look at you, you're doing it. And before you know it, they start pedaling on their own. They're like, look at me, Dad. I can pedal. I can do it. And that's a perfect example of my child might not have had all belief in themselves. The belief I had in them was necessary for them to believe in themselves. it transferred from me to them. And when we do that, we're really igniting people's potential in life. It's really about creating a limitless mindset because people are limitless.
You know, Brian, I don't think it's exclusive to the trades, but unfortunately, the longer people stay in leadership, I feel sometimes calluses develop and a level of cynicism starts infecting us, and our belief in people starts getting overwritten by just pattern after pattern of people who we tried, all right, I'm starting over. Like, I'm going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt, and then flop, or some type of disappointment or whatever.
Yeah.
As leaders, how do we live in this dynamic where those realities exist? Like, our investment sometimes has been in vain, but we still have to push through and we still have to find belief. Otherwise, we just become the grumpy old man in the corner.
Yeah. Everything you said is true, Nate. Sometimes it doesn't work, and you know what? We still have to keep doing it, right? Mm-hmm. But look, I think for the manager, if I could give the manager or the leader a little advice here, what happens is when things aren't going right in the business, we often confuse technical problems with adaptive problems. We often think that, well, maybe we need another SOP. Maybe we don't have the right system and process. So let's pile another one of those things on there because maybe it's a system and process problem. But often it's actually an adaptive problem, which is how people think about the role in which they're doing things. And managers in general, I'm not trying to beat up managers here, but in general, they tend to default to technical solutions for adaptive problems. When things aren't going well, the plumbing connection isn't, something's leaking, so we put another SOP on place. And maybe you have all the right SOPs. Managers tend to default to another SOP because when you think about, and leaders do too, business owners too, me too, because when you have to jump into fixing adaptive problems, that's changing the way people think. That's more of a reflection on my leadership than it is on the lack of SOPs. And it's a much longer journey to change the way people think. But it's so very important because you can have all the SOPs in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset of the people on your team, it's never going to come out the way you want it to.
Can you describe or explain adaptive problems and maybe give us a couple examples?
Yeah, you're a roofer. Okay, you're a roofer. Okay, you have a roofing company, and you have this, and you're a roofing and windows company. I'll use windows because we were in the window business. And there's a customer's window is leaking. And when you tear apart the window, you see the flashing wasn't installed the way it was supposed to be. So you add 2 or 3 more SOPs on top of it to correct to make sure we're installing the flashing. And it happens again 2 weeks later that there's another window that's leaking because the flashing wasn't done right. Is that really an SOP problem? Or is it an adaptive problem? How should people think about what is their responsibility in putting a window in somebody's home and making sure that their kid has that the kid that lives in this particular bedroom whose window you're changing doesn't have a drafty bedroom at night? What's your responsibility in the business to make an impact in every single customer's life? That's an adaptive problem. And that's not going to be fixed no matter how many SOPs you have in place.
Okay, so let me dive into that a little bit deeper. First of all, what's your definition of a leader versus a manager?
Well, if you think about it, it's really those two things. Managers navigate the day-to-day complexities of the business, ensuring systems and processes are being followed. That's what they do. Leaders drive change. Okay, leaders drive change in human behavior, change in direction for the organization. They drive change. Another way to think about it is managers make sure people are doing things right. Leaders make sure people are doing the right things. It's kind of like you're really good at putting an HVAC system in the wrong house. You did a great job putting that system in, but it's in the next door neighbor's house. But managers make sure things are being done right. Is a leader that makes sure that we're doing the right things. If we wind back to the days when we used to sell stuff that we didn't make any money at, we were excellent at selling jobs that we didn't make money at. We were excellent at it. We were the best at it. We can very easily find ourselves being excellent at things that don't matter. Leaders make sure people are doing the right things on things that matter. Managers make sure those things are being done the right way.
Okay, so let's take that back to the illustration.
Yep.
Johnny is the installer. He is now guilty of 2 poorly installed windows, wrong flashing.
Yeah.
His manager is bringing him in for a PIP because he's not following the process, and he's going to have to go through new training schedules and new calendars, and there's going to be quality insurance checks. We're going to have an inspection on his site, randomly 3 times a week. What is a leader doing differently? to get Johnny to actually do the thing that's right.
Yeah, well, so when we think about that, and it's in the book where I have this four square of, the four square is, on one side of the four square is culture fit, and the other side is performance. And the quadrant is like a low culture fit, low performer, high culture fit, high performer, low culture fit, low performer, high culture fit. So we have to first find out which quadrant are they in, because we're going to coach them very, very differently. If I have a high culture fit, low performer, think of it as a sales rep or a technician that you absolutely love. You love this person. They come in the morning. They make coffee every morning. They're the loveliest people in the world. But from a sales standpoint, they can't even close a car door, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to coach that person through a PIP that involves KPIs over a short amount of time. I'm going to give you 10 more opportunities. I need these results. If I have a behavioral problem, I'm going to coach that on how they are aligning to the company's mission and vision statement and why these things matter. I have to adjust I have to adjust their mindset around how they think about their business, how they think about the business and their responsibility to every customer. If I can't get there, then I'd rather have them work for my competitor, because I can't have people that aren't aligned inside of my organization.
That's a good segue into part 2, or pillar 2, I should say, of the book, which is that leaders shape culture through purpose and direction. And you just got done talking about high culture fits there. So walk us through that concept and why it's so important for leadership to embody that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what culture is, right? So let's define culture. Culture inside of a business is it's the shared set of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors amongst the team. It doesn't matter what you want your culture to be. Your culture is how people think, feel, and behave inside of the organization. And it shows up on whether people are showing up on time, whether they're quitting without giving notice, whether they're looking for another job after hours, whether they're working productively, they're productive, whether they're working safely. All of those things determine how an organization performs. How people think determines how an organization performs. How people think and feel determine whether they're showing up or quitting, and how the organization performs. So we got to get people to think right. Again, ultimately, that is the role of the leader. We grow and develop others by changing how people think. So what should their thoughts be aligned around? Well, that comes from a mission and a vision statement. And why does the business exist? What is the aspirational goal of the business? We go back to that whole rubber band. Where are we trying to get to at some point in the future? And what is everybody's role in trying to get there? What behaviors do we need from the team that are acceptable? And what behaviors don't we want? I mean, these are all important things in business. If people understand that, then they know what it means to be part of the team.
Do you believe that you can train culture, Brian?
Oh, I 100% think you can shape culture. I think it's like this. I think it's like if we were on a pottery wheel and we take this lump of clay and we're trying to mold it into a beautiful vase. It's going to take two things. It's going to take us squeezing the clay.
And Patrick Swayze.
Yeah. And it's going to take some time. Changing culture takes pressure and time. It takes both. You need pressure and time to modify the culture. Culture, when I say pressure, what we can't do is we can't allow bad behaviors in our business. Our culture is shaped by our lowest level of acceptable behavior. In many ways, I'm going to say that again. Your culture is shaped by the lowest level of acceptable behavior. In other words, what we tolerate becomes the new standard inside of our business, and we end up with more of it. So we have to prune the culture all the time. It takes pressure, it takes time. But yeah, culture can be taught and shaped.
Now, back to the pillar, the concept is that leaders shape culture through purpose and direction. Correct. And let's just say that we have some leaders listening right now, and for one reason or another, they're frustrated, meaning that there's a misalignment, could be for any number of reasons, between what they believe the culture should be and what the culture actually is. Yeah. And let's assume that we have a self-aware leader who's identified that, okay, there's a gap here. Yeah. If you were coaching that leader, where's the best place for him or her to start to bridge that gap? Yeah, I think the first thing is we have to understand that as an organization grows, the leader gets further and further and further away from the customer. Okay, and we as leaders
might want a relational type business. But then if you pop in most of the meetings, the discussions are labor costs, material costs, marketing costs, conversions, all these metrics that are very they're not very relational. They're rather transactional. So I think the first, I would coach the leader to say, I would start by asking, when is the last time you visited a happy customer? Who's telling the story of the customer inside of your business? If we want to be a customer-centric business, then to me, every leader needs to be talking to our customers, not just the pissed off ones. But we have to make it a point. That's the first thing. It starts with us. We have to model the way. The second thing is, I think we have to survey our team. And look, I like to ask, it's called a stay interview. I like to ask our team a few questions a few times a year. Number one, what makes you want to come to work every day? Number two, what would make you one day want to quit? Number three, what is one thing the company is doing wrong today? And number four, what is one thing that you need from your manager that you're not getting? I would coach the leader because in order to fix the culture, you have to understand the mindset of the people on your team. And if you don't ask those four questions, I really don't know how the team is thinking, so I don't know where to start working.
Those are good questions, and I think they're relevant. Have you found that people answer them honestly?
I have. I used to ask, what is the company doing wrong today? And I would get like 30. They'd give me 30 things. I don't want 30, I want one. Okay. but I think I've gotten very honest answers, and so has my managers. But again, it's part of the culture. I'm not going to, we just want the truth. We're trying to create a better environment for everybody. Our mission statement in our businesses was to do well and do good. And we defined it as the purpose of business is to make a decent profit decently. So we all knew, everybody understood that for us to do good in the communities and take care of people that are struggling, whether it's a veteran that needs a free shower system or something like that, which we did a lot of those kind of projects, we have to do well as an organization. We can't do well if some people inside of the business are resenting things that are going wrong inside of the company. I think it really is all about giving permission to people to speak the truth inside of the business based on what they see. But as the business grows, and if you're the leader and you have managers in your business, we have to realize that they are now the custodian of the company's culture. In many ways, we're outsourcing the culture to the managers because they're the ones working closest to the people that are in the field and they're closest to the customer.
Sorry to kind of hang on this one, but culture is so impactful in every industry, but especially I feel like in the trades because we are in the people business. As you mentioned at the beginning of the show, 95% plus of the team interacts with the consumer, which is wildly different than a lot of businesses. Okay, so to hang in there, let's say that I'm the leader of the organization and I have managers and then I have the teammates underneath of them. And I feel like there's a problem with culture. Where do I start, or how do I identify this is this is a manager issue, or this is a teammate issue, or it's both, or it's neither?
Well, it could be both, right? It could be the leaders. It could be the leader's issue, right?
It could be.
So to answer that, I'm going to jump to another pillar, and then we're going to back up to culture. Okay,
let's do it.
What happens is when a leader or a manager starts to have more and more influence over as they grow a business and grow a team, they have more and more influence over a group of people, right? And what happens is the team will decide what kind of day they're going to have based on the kind of day that the manager is having or based on the kind of day that the leader is having. They're going to determine, should I be happy? Should I be sad? Is my manager stressed? If they're stressed, I'm going to stay away from them. These are things that really affect culture. It's one of the pillars is the idea that leaders are aware of the echo of their voice. We have an echo that we're always sending out. What echo are we sending? What echo are our managers sending? How are we doing performance reviews? How are we doing? Are we waiting? Are people surprised when they're getting fired? Why are we promoting this person? What do we like about this person that we're honoring that and promoting them? Why are we terminating that person? Did we terminate them the right way? Look, you can inspect your culture very simply by looking at how do you hire? How do you fire? How do you promote? and how do you compensate? That will tell you how people are thinking about your business. Oh, we promoted this person. The guy's a jerk. Why do we put them in a manager role? Why is he getting a raise? That guy's really mean to us. Why did we fire them? We really like them. All of these things affect culture. So I would start by, how do we hire, fire, promote, and compensate? Is that are we doing those things correctly? And then what kind of echo is our manager sending? Are people surprised, or are they? And then the last thing is, look, I've always been a big fan of upward surveys, where the team surveys the manager, and the managers and the leader surveys the manager. So the managers have to survey the leader. And I think upward surveys shed a lot of light on where the gaps are in the organization.
So diving into that third pillar, which is leaders are aware of the echo of their voice, I think that's so impactful. And one of the burdens of leadership, whether it's recognized or not, is the fact that our actions matter far more than our words. Hypocrisy is immediately smelled and called out, if not in public, at the dumpster in the trades, as everybody knows. Those things aren't going to go far. So, and there's a popular concept perhaps in the political environment today where people say you get caught in an echo chamber, which means that you surround yourself with only the people that are just going to reverberate what you are already saying. And then we get caught in this, not to get into politics, but basically, if you want to hear red things, you hear red things. If you want to hear blue things, you hear blue things. And all that those echo chambers do is just reverberate the point back to you. And you're like, yeah, see, this is what everybody thinks. A bunch of idiots on the other side. So as a manager, I think the possibility exists in the same way where, like, yes, our echo matters, but sometimes we surround ourselves, or we only tune our ears to the echo that we want to hear back, which is often the sound of our own voice, right, Barton? And that,
I know what you mean.
and when we hear the sound of our own voice, and we hear other people who, we put in position, whatever, to accentuate that, it's like, yeah, see, this is exactly right. So how do we know how to discern which echo we're supposed to be listening to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Look, I think some of it comes down to the types of conversations we have with people, right? Are they afraid to speak the truth, and are we giving everybody ample time? Are we giving everybody the time that they deserve to have? When I think about, like, if I had my cell phone on me and we're doing this podcast and I start texting on my cell phone while we're on this podcast, you'd be like, Brian, could you kind of put the cell phone down? We're like on a podcast here. I would never consider doing that. I wouldn't even think of it. And yet we do that all the time when we're having one-on-one conversations with people. We do that all the time. That doggone phone is in the way. We're getting into it. And to me, it's the echo of I think it starts by, we have to be present for people. We have to be present, that when we're having a conversation, that they're the only person in the room right now. They're the only person that matters. And let's have a real conversation about career development and performance and all the things they're trying to accomplish, and where do we get it right and where are we getting it wrong, and how can I be a better leader, and all those sorts of things. If we only ask questions about, tell me why I'm good, well, we're only going to have one kind of echo. But if we invite questions that challenge us so we can become better leaders, I think that's an important. It's a vulnerability for a manager, but I think it's an important one.
Diving into that, just a close second concept is, as a manager, I feel like sometimes discerning the team's perspective can be challenging, because sometimes they have feelings. They always have feelings. Like the team always have feelings.
The biggest challenge for Nate is they are human beings. Nate,
is not.
He goes in and out of.
So the team has feelings, and sometimes as a man, okay, let's back up. Everybody's defensive about their opinion, right?
Sure.
So yeah. I think we need to do it this way. The team thinks we need to do it this way. A manager thinks his team should be paid less because he's getting beat up by his boss about gross profit margin. The team thinks they should get paid more because their buddy, 2 towns across is making $5 more. And like, there's always this chasm of opinion,
right?
Where, and especially like you mentioned, how the farther you go in leadership, the farther you away from the client. I feel like the farther you go from leadership, the farther you are from the front line as well. And so like you get in this dynamic where like the people on the front line and you become detached,
That's
and
right.
they have your opinions. And of course, from my ivory tower, I'm like, well, those opinions are clearly wrong. And from the trench that they're sweating in right now, they're like, well, this guy doesn't know he doesn't know what work would look like if it hit him.
Yeah.
So like as a leader and as somebody who wants to be
Yeah.
informed by, now, I want my echo to carry in a positive way. Yes. But I also want to hear from the other people, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing genuinely and then processing through it. How do we understand, like, okay, this is a point where I can be right. This is somewhere where they can be right. And we don't get caught in this, like, well, I'm just going to do whatever they want because, like, Brian told me I have to listen to my people, but I also don't want to become a dictator. So I got to balance this whole dynamic of being close enough, but also carrying a bigger perspective.
Yeah. Well, to your point, the further and further we get away from the customer, the more we're in an ivory tower. And in many cases, we still want to be decision makers in a business. But at some point, we might not be the best decision maker for every single situation. We're so far removed from things. And as I write about in my book, and I think the line is, the people closest to the customer don't just need a voice, they need a megaphone. We have to make sure that the people closest to the customer have a megaphone in the business. I have a friend of mine that has the philosophy of an org chart that's upside down. It's an inverted org chart. And the highest paid people in his organization are those that are interacting with the customer. And everybody below that is a support staff, which is a really, really fascinating way to look at it, because they're the ones that really impact things, and it's true. Like I might have, in the one day bath business, I might have a call center agent that talks to the customer for 5 minutes to set an appointment. I might have a sales rep that's in the home for an hour and a half to sell a shower, but the installer is going to be in there for 8 to 10 hours. Tell me their voice doesn't matter. Tell me they're not seeing things in our business that if we don't fix, we're making a mistake. And I think the reason we want to listen to the people closest to the customer is if we don't, we're exposing ourselves up for massive disruption. I think about Uber and taxis. I can't imagine that taxi cab drivers at some point didn't complain that our cabs are dirty and people don't like getting in there. But probably nobody really listened. Nobody cared. And along comes Uber and totally disrupts the taxi industry. We get disrupted when we don't listen to our customer, because disruption happens when somebody can solve a problem in an existing industry, especially around customer dissatisfaction. If I may, the circus is a classic example. Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, a 3-ring circus. They were killing it for a long time, but at some point, people didn't like, the bearded lady at the circus and animal abuses and elephants and the P&L of moving an elephant around the country must be an absolute nightmare, right? And so people stopped going to the circus, and it was dirty and it was smelly. And when they tried to innovate because they were losing business, they went from a 3-ring circus to a 5-ring circus. Instead of they gave people more of what they didn't want. Cirque du Soleil comes along and said, let's just change all of this. Let's get rid of all the things people don't like about the circus. Let's get rid of the smell, get rid of the dirt, get rid of the animals. And instead of charging $10 a ticket, let's serve some great food. And now we can charge $200 a ticket. That's disruption. If we don't listen to our customers, we're bound to be disrupted. And the people that are closest to the customer shouldn't just have a voice, they should have a megaphone.
Yeah, and in many ways, Brian, that requires an element of training to be consistent within the business, regardless of what industry you're in. There should be training and development. And I think that takes us into the 4th pillar, which is that leaders model their business as a training organization. Why, in your mind, is that essential to good leadership?
As long as I have been in this industry, I'm going to make a prediction right here, okay? I'm going to make a 2027 prediction. I'll be the first one to predict this, and you can hold me accountable if it's not true. Ready? 2027, there's going to be a labor shortage.
I'm not taking that bet.
There's been a labor shortage as long as I've been in this business, and surprise, there's a labor shortage. I think we are either held hostage to rules that are out there, or we can say, forget those rules, we're going to create new ones. And to me, when you're a training organization, you're not held hostage to existing conditions of there's nobody to hire, I can't find good people. You can build people, you can grow people. But also, if you have any hopes of empowering people, of empowerment, look, one of the traps for business owners is this, okay? You start a business and it's just you in the business, and everything's fine, right? You have a job, you don't really have a company. But then you start hiring people, and now all of a sudden, the success of your company comes down to how well your teams do, how well your teams perform when you're watching and when nobody's looking. And when you're not hitting targets and you're not getting results, we as leaders of founders of businesses tend to micromanage the result. You got to do a better job. You got to show up more. You got to do it right. We don't mean to. We never got into a business to hope to be a micromanager. We didn't mean to. It wasn't our intention. In fact, that's probably why we started our own business, because we probably worked for somebody like that drove us crazy. But because we're all in on our company, and when things don't go right, we tend to micromanage the result because we have to. But we can't stay in that trap, because it's a trap. If we hope to get out of that trap, we have to start empowering people, which means we have to start training people, which means we have to tell them, you know what? It's okay to be wrong. Just don't be wrong for long. I need you to make decisions. And guess what? Not every decision is going to be the best. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. Just don't be wrong for long. And I think that's so important. You know, it's interesting. Nate, in the shower business, I'll tell you a little interesting piece of trivia. In the shower business, let's say one of my installers is putting in the shower system and they ding some drywall in the hallway, okay? And the customer wants $100 to get it fixed. And if the installer can't make that decision and they pass it up to the manager and the manager can't make that decision, by the time it gets to my desk, the customer doesn't want $100. The customer wants a free house. I broke their house and they need a new home. So, you know, we have to empower people. As we need decision-making to happen as close to the customer as possible. It's just a better customer journey. But we only get there if we're a training organization. And one of the rules behind being a training organization is understanding that if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And another piece to being a training organization is understanding that, you know, I go around the country and I do keynotes all over the country at blue-collar events. And I often ask the whole room, raise your hand if you need to do a better job documenting your systems and processes, and all the hands go up. It's always, okay? It's always. And while systems and processes are important, what the business really needs first are what's known as business disciplines. And that's at the hub of what a training organization is. And I'll give you an example. A business discipline, the lead is sacred. That's a business discipline. Now, we can talk about the SOP that treats it that way, but the discipline is the lead is sacred. Or when we're done with the job, we get paid in full. Or which is a great discipline, by the way. Or we don't want any one marketing source to be more than 20% of our business. These are business disciplines. This is at the core of a training organization. What are the business disciplines? How should people think about the job? Forget about the SOPs. That's technical. The adaptive side is the discipline. We were talking about that earlier. How should people think about the role and why it's important? That's what it means to model your business as a training organization.
I like that, Brian, and just conceptualizing that like into our own business and specifically into the trades. As you have thought through the idea of business disciplines, have you found them to be most effective when they are delivered top down or when they are harvested bottom up?
Yeah, I think it's a combination, right? I think there's some disciplines that have to be top down, but there others have to be as a team. And if we start about like, you know, where do we lose as a team, right? Where do we lose? When do we screw up? When do we piss off a customer? When do we piss each other off? And then the opposite of that can be a discipline of the business. You know, one of the disciplines is we participate in training. That's a discipline. That's what we do. You know, so if I call on you in a training, it's only because it's a discipline, and it's we keep it positive. You know, so I think it's both. I think it's both.
This is a fascinating conversation, Brian. Really enjoying it. And it's going to bring us to the conclusion here as we've gone through 4 pillars. So first is belief is transferable. Leaders transfer their beliefs, confidence, standards, and visions to the team. Second is leaders shape culture through purpose and direction. Culture does not happen accidentally. The third is that leaders are aware of the echo of their voice, and everything a leader says echoes through the company. The fourth is that leaders model their business as a training organization, and great organizations are constantly training. And the last one, Brian, is that managers need a checklist. So walk us through this and how this relates to bringing out the 5 pillars.
Yeah, you want to fix your culture, give your managers this checklist. There has been 0 books that I've ever seen for the blue collar industry that actually rolls out a management training program, and that's what this book delivers in this particular pillar. That there are certain behaviors and practices that the best managers have in common, and there are 10 of them in total. I won't go through all 10 of them, but one of them is a company might have a vision statement, but what about the team vision statement? How should I, as a technician, think about what I do every day and why I should perform at a certain level? The company vision statement might not apply to me as at the team level. So when I'm bringing people on board, I can now teach them not just how to be a technician, but what it means to be part of the team through our team vision statement. So managers lead with a team vision statement, but they're a series, or how to do a performance review, or what does it mean to communicate effectively? You see, the truth is that when we're trying to deal with people, sometimes we need to be a manager, and sometimes we need to be a leader. Sometimes we need to apply a lever of control, and sometimes we need to use influence. We need to not be right, but we need to be influential. And there's a big difference. And so the 10 practices of top performing managers offer people both levers of influence and levers of control on what it means to be a great manager, and can be used as a checklist to make sure, am I doing these 10 things properly? Does my team think how do I perform according to the team on these 10 areas? Does the team think I'm a good communicator? Does the team think I embrace continual process improvement? How does the team rate me on praising performance publicly? How do they rate me on practicing empowerment? These are all important factors that help a manager become better.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Brian. And I don't know the full extent of the 10 list, but one thing in leadership, and just confession time here, right? Sometimes it feels like the last thing I need is another 10 things that I need somebody to rate me on and tell me that I'm not doing good in these areas, or that I'm going to beat myself up on. And I do feel like I hold a high standard, and I want others to be appreciated, and I want them to be recognized, and I want to make sure we follow our process. I want to make sure we have good KPIs. I want to make sure that we have team development. I want to make sure that everybody's winning.
Yeah.
This is a lot, Brian. And that's just off the cuff. Then we have your 10 things, and then we have 200 other leadership management books that have been written across the years that bring another 50 things into the quotient. Yeah. How do I balance this as a manager, and how do I know where to even begin?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You mentioned you have KPIs. One of them is KPI focused and accountable. My suspicion is, Nate, you're a great leader for your team. You're probably doing 8, 9, or 10 of these things already. Right now, we can all get better on them. I can get better on them. We can all say, how do we get better on each one? Are we doing them consciously? And more importantly, can we train another manager on how to do it? And that's where, when we're bringing on a manager, often we put somebody in a role because they have the most experience. But what about the manager training program? What does that look like? This really is an opportunity to train managers on how to be better leaders inside of the business. We all get our information from all kinds of areas, from a podcast, from workshops, from friends of ours. This particular pillar gives managers a place to start. Okay, these are the 10 things that I'm ultimately responsible for as a manager, and I know if I do these things well, I'm going to be leading a great team.
Great way to wrap it up there, Brian. I've really appreciated the conversation today, and I'm sure others have as well. If they're interested in diving more into the concepts in your book, or they'd like to get connected with you personally, where are good places to find those resources?
Yeah, well, the book's available on Amazon, Beyond the Hammer. It's a great audiobook. It's also a great... Brian, did you do the audiobook, or did you...
Oh, yeah. Audiobook.
Yeah, the audiobook's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't... Yeah, I feel like it's going to be better than reading the book, particularly for our audience who are mostly, I don't know, what, 70% would you say the field staff, service techs, salespeople in the field? Yeah. Good time.
Yeah, great.
Like
great
every time I got out of the car or left the office, got away from my desk, it just paused. And then later on, when I was available, I picked it back up, and the story just keeps going. It's very easy to listen to start to finish, unlike a lot of like leadership books where you kind of don't remember where you were at or what the point was when it's story form, which is why I love that book and like Patrick Lencioni's books.
Yeah, it sucks you in. It sucks you in. Once you're in, you're just in.
You can't wait to keep going. And it's funny too because I just what was his name from the book?
Well, there was George and there was Marty.
George was the main character, right?
Yeah. He was the struggling guy.
Yeah, I just saw and heard your voice every time he was speaking. I just thought that was you, right? So I'm thinking, is this Brian's career story? Is this his company, or is
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's funny when I was thinking about this episode. I'm like, I'm gonna ask how his daughter's doing. Wait a minute, that's his daughter. Wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, to answer it, I'm both characters. I've been George and I've been Marty. So that's and yes, I've got 6 kids and they're all, you put them all together and I got Amelia. But anyway, Amazon, you can find it on Amazon, or if you want to just say hi to me, my website briangottlieb.com. And I'm always available for phone call. All right.
Yep, and Audible.
Yep.
So, Brian, appreciated the conversation today. And I want you to just wrap us up with the concept around this. As I told you off air, a lot of our listeners are maybe not necessarily in management. They're probably some frontline people for sure. A lot of our listeners are in the field today. They're driving to their call right now, listening to this podcast. Yeah. And so while I always love having leadership and management training episodes because I enjoy the conversation, sometimes it can feel a little bit distant or a little bit like outside of the listener purview. So, but I think everybody is usually looking for a ladder. They're looking for a ladder out of the trench. They're looking for a ladder out of the truck. They're looking for a way to get into something, and leadership is one of those things. So if you can reflect upon a time when you were in the trenches, so to speak, and you would have heard a podcast about this, what would you recommend to yourself? Here's where to start if you're looking to get into a leadership journey.
Yeah, well, first understand you already are a leader, okay? Let's first understand that. You're meeting with people, they have a problem, you're helping them solve that problem, you have to explain a solution to them, you have to deal with their fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and you help them through that. So you're already a leader, okay? The question is, how do you now teach what you do so well to others and become even more of an impactful leader and mentor and develop others? And I think it really starts by, number one, letting your intentions be known to anybody that's on your team and those that you actually work for, and let them know that, hey, what do I need to do to take that next step up? Now, I'll tell you what I used to do when I was younger and working in the field, installing stuff in the blue collar world, is I would. Now, today you can do reviews, right? Online reviews, but this is before there was online reviews. I used to tell my customer, hey, if you really liked what I did, can you do me a favor? Can you please just call my boss and let him know I did a good job? Can you do that for me? Because sometimes what happens is we get lost in the shuffle in a very busy business. But when your name is mentioned in a review or a customer calls the owner of the business to brag about you, that stuff really matters. And so you have it within you to develop whatever career you want. Just don't be afraid to go chase it.
Great words to end on, Brian. Thanks for the conversation today. Thanks for writing a book, and we look forward to part 2.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Brian.
Thanks. Peace out.
That's a wrap for this episode. Hope that you did enjoy the conversation with Brian. It was great to hear from him. We always enjoy a great conversation regarding leadership and leadership development, and I hope that you found some good places to focus on today. Whether you're a leader currently or a leader in development in the future, always a great idea to start honing in those skills or to pick up some slack on some of the areas where you feel you've grown weak or a little bit lackadaisical. Great conversation with Brian today. As he mentioned, his book is available on Amazon. It is called Beyond the Hammer, and it is going to be a good read or a good listen for you. Make sure you pick it up today and hit him up and let him know what you thought about the show. Also, share this episode around if you enjoyed it and you have a leader in your life, not your boss, that you're looking to have more development for them, and we would appreciate that as well. We're going to leave you now with our weekly challenge, which continues to be the same: to choose to wake up each and every morning and waste no day.